Hey, it's Huck. And I am feeling much better. It took a good week out of the hospital before I started coming around, but I have every reason to believe I'm going to be every bit as good and maybe as strong as ever. I'm going to go back to some pulmonary rehab here next week and try to get my endurance back up, but I'm weaning myself off of the oxygen again. I'm up and around, and I'm actually been feeling pretty good here the last couple of days. I cannot tell you what a help my friend Dustin has been this last week. He went home yesterday, but he stayed with me here, helped me out, did all kinds of loads of wash. First few days I came home from the hospital, I was in a really bad way. And I couldn't do much for myself at all. But he did everything, and he's not by any means, the caregiver type, I think, but I'll tell you what, he did everything and then some. Went to the store for me, made my meals for me, changed my bed. Like I say, fetched and, even reminded me when I was supposed to take my medications and things. And like I said, the first 3 or 4 days I was home, I was a real basket case. And I don't know what I would have done without Dustin. I am truly, truly fortunate to have some people in my life that are so giving and self-sacrificing. And that's true with some of my viewers as well, that I can't, even begin to explain. Because I wouldn't be here without your help, without your kindness. At any rate, so that's where I'm at. I wanted to make a message today, though, that's a little bit more political. And I've been following along, all of this stuff that's going on. And it looks like, things have tightened up, at least for now. That big blue wave that we are absolutely in dire need of is looking a little precarious at this point. Now, the best predictions are that, the Democrats may take the House, or they may just fall a bit short. But right now, it looks like if they do, win a majority in the House, they need to take something like 23 seats from Republicans. And right now, there's a question of whether or not they'll be able to actually do that. The numbers seem like maybe 18 or 19 look like a pretty sure thing. But those last, 5 or 6, we'll have to see if they're there. And of course, the other disappointing news right now is that in the Senate, where we needed to take, at least 2 from Republicans, and more importantly, we need to hold on to quite a few that are in kind of Republican territories, places like Montana with Tester, places like North Dakota with Heitkamp, places like maybe Tennessee, where we have the former Democratic governor going up against Marsha Blackburn for a Senate seat. Places like Florida, where, you've got a race between, Gillum, the Tallahassee mayor, and current Governor Rick Scott. Places like Georgia. So, at any rate, trying to pull off all of those is going to be tough. And so as I'm looking at all of this, I'm wondering, what happened to all the enthusiasm? Well, I think it's still there with Democrats. I do think that Democrats are as motivated, at least for a midterm election, as at any time I can recall. People are comparing this now to maybe, midterms of like 96 or whatever, when there was a kind of a wave election, but it didn't turn to be as big as maybe people had hoped. We'll have to see whether or not the recent uptick in Republican motivation is will stand the test of time. We've got about 3 weeks here before the election, or just under 3 weeks, and like I say, Democrats have been motivated for a long time. but it boggles my mind that something like 70-75% of Republicans can still be motivated to vote Republican, when we have seen this party take the extreme right fascist turn that it's taken. And I don't know. I mean, I have maintained for a long time that Republican policies are evil and that they literally cause people to die. I did a controversial video some time ago where I said that Republicans are responsible for more deaths in the United States than terrorists. And I know a lot of people thought that was like, well, every name you can call a liberal, I guess I was called. But I maintain to this day that it's accurate. Whether you're looking at their climate change policies, whether you're looking at their gun policies, whether you're looking at their health care policies, they would rather see people die than to see, reforms made that would, give people less chance of being gunned down, fewer incidents of gun violence, certainly fewer incidents of mass violence, those kind of things like universal background checks, things like, maybe a ban on semi-automatic warlike assault rifles, things like a ban on armor-piercing bullets and bump stocks and 50 caliber, 20 caliber, or 50 bullet or 20 bullet clips or magazines. Those kind of things, universal background checks without, loopholes for gun shows or for private sales or for internet sales. Those kind of things that, 70-80% of Americans seem to agree with. And yet, Republicans stand in the way of those. So why are Republicans, able to get 70% loyalty when clearly not 70% of Republicans necessarily feel that way? I did, many, many videos on Obamacare, but it bears repeating. There is only one reason why there are no Republicans running for office that really want affordable, accessible health care for people. And right now, you've got candidates running for Congress and Senate and governor all over the country that are claiming, that are lying, saying that all Democrats are for this, $32 trillion takeover of Medicare for all, this Bernie Sanders policy. And the truth is, that's just not true. There are a handful of Democrats, the most progressive ones, that, are all in on that. But they have nowhere near the votes for that, and they know it. Which is why the the Obama administration, didn't pursue a universal health care policy in that direction. Because they thought it would be a bridge too far at this time. It was still, whether it's worth the money, is a debate, worthy of having. It may very well prove true. I personally think it is worth the cost. But the fact is, you're not going to get enough agreement, and Republicans are going to fight tooth and nail on anything hinting towards that. And so Obama took actually a Republican idea, the conservative approach to accessing health care, using, the infrastructure that's out there, which are all these private insurance companies, and they came up with, the Affordable Care Act. So it's really a Republican idea, but the reason that Republicans hate it has nothing to do with any of the things they claim. It has nothing to do with, the individual mandate or the fact that people are, penalized, supposedly, if they don't purchase it. It has nothing to do with the cost. And health insurance has risen double digits almost every year as long as I can remember, long before the Affordable Care Act. If anything, since the Affordable Care Act went into law in 2010, the percentage of increase, the amount of increase annually has actually gone down from what healthcare insurance increases cost prior to that. And that's because there are built-in safeguards in the law. For instance, insurance companies have to justify rate increases. And of course, the Trump administration from day one has done everything they can to absolutely undermine this law. Of course, when they first got into office here, the first thing they tried to do was to repeal it. And, may rest in peace, John McCain, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, they stood up, did the right thing, and made sure that the law was not repealed. But the real reason that Republicans have been trying to get rid of it had nothing to do with any of the things they're talking about. It's all about how it's funded. For the first time ever, their very rich donors were going to be paying a lot of money to pay for that out of their investment income. And frankly, the real rich people, the Adelsons and the Koch brothers and these real estate tycoons down in Dallas and all these other, 200 really wealthy families that basically bankroll the Republican Party in this country. These people make all their money on investments, whether it's stocks and bonds and mutual funds and, day trading, or whether it's real estate. They've got all their money tied up in investments, some of it in offshore accounts where they don't pay any taxes. But what taxes they do pay is a capital gains tax. That's it. Whatever that is now, 15%, I think, under Trump. But they have never paid a Medicare tax like you and I do. You pay a 1.9% Medicare tax on every dollar that you earn if you get a paycheck. And whoever is providing you that paycheck pays the other 1.9%. If you're self-employed, you pay the full 3.8% Medicare tax on every dollar you earn. But the rich people have never paid a Medicare tax, just like they don't ever pay a Social Security tax, because investment income has never had to pay any of that. We do. They don't. And even though it's less than 4%, you would think we were taking the 96% and leaving them with the 4%. They were livid. They were livid. And, let's face it, if you're making a couple $100 million a year on investments, you're talking a lot of money. 3.8% is hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you're making $1 billion, it's even more than that. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars. And that's every year you're paying. And so that had to be repealed. How dare we actually have to pay what, Joe Sixpack has to pay? We can't tolerate that. And so that's the whole reason why they could give a damn whether people have health care. There are basically right now about 23 million people that are insured through the Affordable Care Act that were not insured before, either through the Medicaid expansion, making people now eligible that weren't eligible for Medicaid before, or through, the exchanges or, getting the subsidized health care that I was on for a couple of years myself, that made it very, very affordable. And I'll tell you what, it was the best health insurance I ever had. It's better than the Medicare I'm on now. It was better than the employee insurance that I had, prior to that. And it was cheaper. Now, like any big healthcare policy, once it was passed and once it was put into effect, it became clear that there were some problems with it. There were some tweaks that needed to be done. There were probably ways that, reasonable, for very, very low cost, could have made even more people access, its benefits, its subsidies, for instance. More people that were maybe that had to get the higher priced employee coverage that might have been able to access some of the subsidies as well to help them out, because that's been a problem, particularly for larger families. But the fact that everybody was now going to be able to access insurance that covered everybody, regardless of, your health, regardless of any pre-existing conditions. This is huge. No longer were people walking around with basically worthless insurance that the moment you got sick or the moment you came down with something serious, your insurance company said, hey, we're not going to cover you now. Republicans have no interest in insuring people. They have an interest in getting their donors as much of their own money back as possible and screw everybody else. So you've got all these people now who are lying in their races. All these Republicans that are lying, talking about how, they stood up for pre-existing conditions. Bullshit! They tried to do a straight repeal of Obamacare. They tried to substitute a policy that had no guarantee for people with pre-existing conditions. It basically would have priced people with pre-existing conditions out of the market, is what it would have done. Yeah, you could have got insurance, but you couldn't have afforded it, so you couldn't have got insurance. There is absolutely nowhere in the world where a free market-based healthcare system works, is either affordable or accessible. It simply does not exist. It is something that cannot exist. No insurance company in the world is ever going to willingly insure old people or sick people because it costs too much. And so there's only one way to do it. You put everybody in the same pool and you spread the risk and share the cost, and it brings the price way down, which is kind of what Obamacare tried to do. Or you have like a universal government-run, all in one system. Call it what you will. Medicare for all, universal health care, national health system, whatever you want to call it. But that's what almost all other civilized countries in Europe, Canada, Australia, and that's what they all have now. And it works. It's more cost effective, it's cheaper, you have better health outcomes, and all of the bullshit, all of the lies that they spread to try to scare people. Oh, but you'll wait forever to get, you can't be seen, you'll die before you're seen by a doctor, you can't get a specialist for months. That's a system we have now. People aren't coming over here for their health care that have those kind of systems. You don't see people flocking to the United States from Canada. It just doesn't happen. And nobody's coming from Europe to come to America to get their it's crazy. At any rate, I have no idea why there are so many racist, misogynistic, just people that still support Trump or support these people in the Republican Party, in the Senate and the House, that are enabling and protecting him. And so I figure Republican voters are a lost cause. They're just a lost cause. Don't waste your breath trying to debate them. I just simply won't do it anymore. If we're going to defeat these people, we're going to have to do it the whole old-fashioned way. We're going to have to show up in numbers and simply overwhelm them, which means Democrats have got to be more motivated than we've ever been before. And we've got to recruit more Democrats or more people to vote Democratic than we've ever done before. And I think in many ways, because of Trump's nonsense, to a certain extent, we have done that to some extent. So Republicans are basically retaliating by doing some of their old tricks, except now they're doing it much more openly and much more brazenly. And that is like purging voter rolls of registered voters in Democratic districts. In Ohio, going into the 2016 race, purged, I forget what it was, more than 100,000 voters off the rolls. I think Indiana had purged something like 200 and some thousand. Georgia, Florida, a lot of Republican states were, doing the same thing. And then they find different ways to do it that they try to justify. We're just taking people off the voting rolls. If you haven't voted in 3 elections, we're going to remove you from the voter rolls. And then you suddenly go show up to vote, and they're telling you that you're no longer registered. And basically you can't vote. Oh, you can ask for a provisional ballot, but then it won't be counted. And they don't tell you that they're eliminating your... And it's all arbitrary, and it's all very, very methodically thought out. We know what's going on in North Dakota, where they have systematically, tried to get the Native American population to live on reservations. Basically, they have written laws to basically ban them from voting. And I know if you've been following like Rachel Maddow lately, you've heard all about that. So I won't go into great detail about that. But basically it has to do with the fact that Native Americans in North Dakota largely live on reservations that don't have street addresses. So the GOP said, hey, 70% of all Native Americans vote Democrat. Let's eliminate them so Heidi Heitkamp can't be reelected. And so they made a voting ID law that says if you don't have a street address on your voter ID, you can't vote. You see what's going down in Georgia here. There's been a lot of news out of Georgia. It's pretty bleak. We've been hearing stories out of North Carolina and South Carolina and Florida and Texas. I mean, there's just so much of this. Wisconsin, where they, one way or another, they're trying to deny, if they're not purging voters from the voting rolls, they're denying voter registrations, or they're arresting people for registering voters. How you can vote for a party that systematically plans and implements these type of unconstitutional infringements on people's, voting rights? How you can support a party that does that? I don't know. I can't. I don't know how you live with yourself. I can't. I just have no. You're beyond help and beyond my ability to. So I'm just not going to debate you on anything anymore. I'm concerned that in some cases 45% of independents are now voting or leaning Republican, and I'm thinking, where are these people coming from? I mean, are there that many racist people? Are there that many misogynistic people? Are there that many people that are convinced that immigrants are a problem when that's just a foolishness? How can you support people that put 10-year-olds in cages and then adopt them out to people without telling their real parents? How can you support that? These people shouldn't be voted for. People that implement policies like that should be in prison for a very long time. We've gotten to the point where in most states now it's beyond time to register. If you haven't registered to vote in many states now, you've kind of missed your deadline. So hopefully everybody that's watching this video has already registered to vote. I wasn't feeling well when I first came home here a week ago, and so I contacted my local board of elections, and I had them send me out I wanted to vote by absentee ballot to be sure that I voted, because I wasn't sure whether I'd be well enough to get down to the precinct and vote. So they sent me a form, and I had to fill out the form requesting an absentee ballot. And so I mailed that back. Now, I suppose within a few days I'll get my absentee ballot, and I will fill that out, and then as long as I get that back to them before I think it has to be arrived by the if you mail it, it has to arrive by the Saturday before Election Day. Otherwise, if you take it in, I think you can take it in, I don't know, the day before Election Day or the day of election. I don't know. But at any rate, and now the thing is, if you do request it and they do mail you out an absentee ballot, you can't change your mind at that point. In other words, you can't say, oh, I'm going to go down and vote. And, I won't use this. Because if you go down there, they will see that you requested an absentee ballot, and they will not allow you to vote. They'll say, they'll allow you to cast a provisional ballot, but then they won't count it. So at any rate, and, Ohio's not quite as bad as there are some other states that, casting absentee ballot, they make it harder than it could be. And I was just reading an article where, I can't remember, forgive me, I can't remember what state this occurred in, but they tossed all of the, I think, some state where they were, had just opened up early voting, and they threw out like 5,000 absentee ballots, just got rid of them for some trivial reason that they would not count these 5,000 absentee ballots. And if I remember the article correctly, they said that they weren't necessarily going to notify any of these people and let them know that their ballots were thrown out. So, and by the way, these were Republican held. So, this is how Republicans win. It is imperative that you vote. It is imperative that you get everybody that you know to vote. It's imperative that you get young people to vote. Democrats would win overwhelmingly, both the House and the Senate, if we had like a 35-40% youth turnout. When I say youth, I'm talking about young voters, 18 to 24. If we had something, young people overwhelmingly vote, liberal, more progressive. So they tend to vote Democrat when they vote. But typically they turn out like 18%. Young people vote. And in elections that are typically close and where, Donald Trump was elected basically because of, 80,000 votes in 4 states. You jump that youth vote up from 18% to 26, 27, 30, 35%. You're going to win a ton of elections. And you're going to win them pretty big. You're going to have a Democratic House. You're going to have a Democratic Senate. I'm going to talk in my next video a little bit about, leading up now to this November 6th election, we're going to do some more videos a little bit more frequently. I'll try to be a little bit more focused. But I wanted to get this out today. Let you know that I'm feeling great. I have got bills, though, coming out of my ears. They charged me $275 a day for this most recent hospital stay, which, I guess overall, that's considering what, the insurance company's probably paying. But still, I was in there for quite a few days. So, that's, and I don't know, part of me wants to pay it quickly, like, let's pay $275 a month, but that would be impossible for me to do that, even with the help that I've been getting. It wouldn't be, it would probably be impossible because I've got other things that I'm trying to pay a little bit on, including the last time I was in the hospital, my student loan taxes on that. I've got a little fund going that I'm trying to get. I want to buy a burial plot for my mom and dad. I want to get one for me beside them, and so I'm slowly putting some money into that fund. I'm paying off my trip last year. And I'm making good progress on all of those things, but, and that's why I say these, so this just kind of backs me up. And I want to thank everybody out there. And there's 2 of you in particular that, have really, really made it possible for me to, to pay these things and stay on top of them, as they come in. And like I say, so I pay, as much as I can on them, and I pay them every month, and I'm making good progress. So, I could see. What I tend to do is I pay like $25 a month on something, and then I pick one bill and I pay a lot on it to eliminate that one, as quickly as possible. And after a few months, that one's paid off, and then I have one less bill. And again, I'll pay $25 on everything except one that I'll really concentrate on, and until I eliminate that one. And so that's what I've kind of been doing. And if I had just my, my regular Social Security disability income, well, I would have lost the house a long time ago. I wouldn't be able to afford, my medicine. I wouldn't have TV. But with the help that I've been receiving, I've been able to do all of this, and and systematically get to the point where I can see, the light at the end of the tunnel. And I am so thankful that there are people out there that are just so kind and so. I mean, I don't know, to make that kind of a sacrifice, it really does restore, my hope, and it makes me believe, and kind of strengthen my resolve, to fight for, the things I believe in, because, there are people like that, and there are millions of people out there that that need some hope and need some help, and we've got to fight for them, just like you've been fighting for me. I want to fight for you, and the only way that I can. Anyway, I've talked way too long. I'm ranting like a madman. I do feel good, though. I'm feeling much better. And I will be talking, I know, one of the things I've been speculating here, just at some point, maybe after the midterms, we're going to talk a little bit about this, but I'm curious, who do you see as the likely, if Trump manages to stay in office for, a re-election attempt in 2020, who do you see as possibilities to run against him? I'm giving a lot of thought to that lately, and I know there are people that like this Beto O'Rourke down in Texas. I know that Biden is real serious about it. There's certainly no shortage of people, that are interested in that office, whether it be Cory Booker or Kamala Harris, both senators. And like I say, there's others. There's always going to be, that push for Bernie Sanders. Jerry Brown, California, is another name that gets tossed around. So anyway, I'm looking at all of this. I mean, right now I kind of have my own thoughts. I don't think, first of all, it'll be such an important election, we can't take any chances. So I'm not necessarily sure. I know Democrats like young and exciting and hopeful, inspirational candidates, and Barack Obama certainly appealed in that sense. And I think the first time he was swept in on the heels of just a terrible situation that Bush had created, and so that, largely helped Obama. The fact that the whole economy was imploding. Not to mention that people were becoming disillusioned with the two wars and everything else on top of that. But, I think, whenever you hold the presidency, Barack Obama had a system down. He pretty easily won re-election, but it is hard to unseat an incumbent. And I think, there will be a big advantage for Trump. As hard as it is for me to conceive of this guy getting elected the first time, it'll actually be harder to unseat him than it was to elect him in the first place. And he's certainly going to have no shortage of money. And from what I understand, he's already got $100 million in his campaign chest. And I don't know. I don't. At any rate, we'll be doing some stuff about that probably after the midterms. I'm just curious what you think. Right now, I'll be honest with you. If I had to pick somebody right now, simply because I think he'd win, I'd probably be supporting Biden, because I think he can win, and I think he's somebody that would probably beat Trump, and I'm not sure I can say that about everybody else whose name has been bandied about, but I think, at least as I see it right now, and right now that's kind of the most important thing to me is at all costs we got to beat Trump. But at any rate, that's a thought for another day. I've gone way beyond my time limit. If you've watched all of this, I don't know. I got to buy you dinner, I think. I don't know. Thank you so much. I'll see you again real soon. We're going to be making lots of videos between now and November 6th. Hopefully they'll be briefer than this. Have a great day.